I recognize those whispers, but is it better if I actually listen to something else? Like, really, the idea of being able to say, why didn't I think of that? Or why didn't anyone think of this? Is actually like being able to say that everything is all the same. If you can't give up to it, then would you ever be able to say, why didn't I think of that? Then would it be able to play? And if you couldn't ever come up with another saying, so that you could make sense of the idea of why didn't anyone come up with it? Like, anyone is actually just someone. And if anyone was someone, then who is hurt in all this fun? Then giving up is actually like still being able to play. Because everybody knows that it can only be so serious before the game is actually just nose goes. Then you could say that actually lies exist. But if they're true, then lies are missed. So actually, does this umbrella even exist? No, it doesn't. This is all just the figment inside someone's head. Then I could say that if there was any way for things to actually know a better way, it's probably in some way the ability to say that the anyone who actually is just like someone then can you name them? Because I know that the idea is changing. Then can you say something that hasn't changed, that can be seen? Then is that actually like the idea? Especially when the idea is some physical representation of things that doesn't make sense if there's only one of them. But like I said, the problem with that has already gone to bed. So if I was to say or talk about the belief of some sign, let me just go and ask this person right here. Excuse me, I got a question. Does this not lead to a road that travels down the freeway?
It does not.
All right.
In order to get there, go down this road again.
Yeah.
Go down, and then you want to turn left at. It's like a church. It's not an LDS church. It's some sort of other church, but you'll see the building on your left. It's a few blocks down.
All right.
Okay.
For sure.
You'll know it's a church though. It has a big old theme on it. I don't remember what left there, then that will take you right along that freeway.
All right, cool.
Okay, good luck, brother.
Thanks. There's a red deer. So I could just say there is still deer here, which means that I could probably say that there's actually a trick to it, which just means that instead of playing, there is actually fun, because you can actually distinguish some sense between those words of somebody playing and actually having fun. So now that I saw a red deer, does it actually give a sense of me being here in some pathway? Well, really, then I'll just say this for the safe way. How long is a day? Basically, that's what I would say then. Because if a day is always how it's been, then really it's just only a matter of time. And if you were to see things change, then you'd probably be pretty comfortable with your ability to say that everything is cool. And if I was just to tell you how, to give some sense of the little and the now, it would be just the idea that there is something questionable to the color of you. If I was to actually point out something that actually seemed questionable in some way, really then the whole idea just goes back to the idea of there being something that's actually greater than, and its ability to actually be greater for something. because that thing almost doesn't make sense. If I was to say what I am for, to make recompense, I would say something to the extent like, right now, I'm for my brother. And that actually sounds way better than saying that word in some other way. If actually I had to say what I am for, really, on this day. So take that how you will. Because really the most frustrating thing to get over was probably just the ability to have hair anyways, to be able to put that piece of wire there so that I could actually say that things weren't necessarily compromised in some manner that basically either takes the geometry to something that's completely unrecognizable or something that seems like a bad shape, even though it works. Then it would be like I was actually just sitting in the shade. Which then basically that idea is just like, really, all those tricks would just be like if I was to put this in some really bad shape. And basically if I'm playing off of that, but if I was to play off of that in a good way, in regards to taking history into account, it would be like actually very carefully taking, yeah, I could, with all the wire that's on the very end of this, not the struts. The struts are basically, at this point in time, the struts on this are really not workable. They're like that bad angle. But if I was to try and like actually kind of go the other way with this, to basically give up some sense of the idea that couldn't be missed, rather than just have the idea be moving, it would be like, yeah, actually there's wire in there. And on the end of those struts, I could take all that wire and I could make something probably look pretty ridiculous. And there's basically almost like a limitless amount of places that I could hang up around here just to give things an idea of, like, you can trust what you see, basically. Would just be like almost that bad idea, but that's actually making the best of like a worst case scenario. And is that really all I was doing? And then I was just trying to obviously see how far I could go, which is then just like overspilling, overflow. So then if that's like the idea of that, then I think that the other idea is just like the idea of like changing the world, or like actually really working, which would just be like really making this kind of on your own. But then it would have to have like a real sense of dedication to it, which would just be like believing in trends as well. And then it's like you might just end up really falling for it yourself if you believe in it that much, that the world should be some other way. It shouldn't necessarily be this way. So then, like, the trick to it is really sort of maybe your resort. Because like I said, like, is it something evil? If there is like something that can take advantage of all these things. But like I said, evil might play, but is it fun? And if it's not fun, then is evil just playing with itself? And is that always a way out if things are too bad? And if it's a very bad situation? And so I could say some sort of like resort, at least if I was to actually make up a resort. I'm not necessarily going to say some stuff that I think is around here, like around this way. I might as well just make something up, just like I did with those buildings that I thought could actually be neat if they were to be real. Like, why not have some resort, especially here in the feel of this place, that actually had some sort of really fascinating, because I'm getting an idea of something very artistic, but it just becomes so hot here that it almost just becomes abandonment. Like, maybe I could use that to pivot my mind on itself a little bit here and say something like, yeah, well, why is it that all the structures go up? Why can't we have some sort of like open pit here that has all these levels of shops? And actually, sounds pretty fucking ridiculous, doesn't it? But it just seems like, why the fuck not? Again, just like one of those things. Just some giant open pit that has like levels of shops all the way down. And maybe, then it can be really hot, and it can probably sell like those ideas of like colored glass and things. And it can also be according to like this age. And this giant, vast, open fucking pit has like chairlifts that you can take the way down, or you can walk it. There's a road that goes all the way, because why the fuck not? It's not like people have to take the road all the time. If things work according to reason, they don't have to. But why the fuck is anyone gonna care if they take the fucking road and just walk all the way down, spiraling all the way down the fucking pit? This fucking open fucking pit. And see, then I've actually given like a few good ideas, like just up off the top of my mind. And I could make it easier for everyone, because obviously it's like I can upload all this for me, and I could rewatch this and cut out the parts and just give these ideas if I really wanted to actually sort of like make this idea come true. And maybe I will now, because why the fuck not? And it's not like I'm ruining any of those sections that were actually just like maybe getting over myself, because obviously the scheme has changed now. Is this the railroad? Should I have stuck to the road? Or now am I actually really driven? So then basically I almost just have to say like reality isn't real or something like that, or some idea. I'm not gonna go mess with that. Like whatever the chances are on that. I'm just gonna stick with my guns on this and just not try to betray my former self or something, I don't know. Because earlier I was so set on like just making it with what I had. Like if I could just give some better picture of the idea now. And the idea was maybe that there's like I have to come up with something better. Like that's just it. I have to come up with something better. Because really it's just like how much can I talk about there being something to the history of a thing itself before it's just like that whole idea of hitting a golf ball again, where if you hit it far enough then it like should be straight no matter what kind of thing, because was it straight before you dropped it? It's just like the texture of something actually just basically gives you that idea almost. And it's like the Rolling Stones or something like that. And the idea of like Rolling Stones is sort of kind of like, and see, is it any worse now that it's like I'm going slow and you can like see me trying to think out, and like actually I'm trying to describe like what the ability is for the idea, but just because it's slower, does it sound any more or less ridiculous than what was going on if things have like independent thought themselves, or if the world is what it says it is, which is either unchanging or completely changing by the fact that it's so vast. So then if I am to say that the world is so vast, then maybe the idea is just to make you question yourself. Like in the point in time in which you can question yourself, then it's not necessarily like you've reached some barrier. Like everybody's actually trying to reach some barrier, an invisible barrier. Like that's actually what the idea is, at least here. Because then it's like as soon as you reach some idea of there being an invisible barrier, then you think that you have a lot of excuse to do certain things. Although I would almost kind of say like an invisible barrier should almost certainly have like a texture as well. And if I was to give some sort of like texture of like that invisible barrier, then it might be like a golf ball or like a rolling stone, which is like the big version of it, which is like the idea of some forgotten, lost man or something like that. And basically all of his stuff just keeps up with the time, even though it's almost something that all you have to do to reach the end point is just push. And this man, he exists somewhere, at least inside my head. And when he pushes, it makes it so that all this complex geometry sort of is the most basic exotic. If I am actually trying to use some words here to give some picture of something like that. Like like the most basic form of exotic nature there is, because at the same point in time that all that stuff represents universality, it represents like really the only time anyone's going to use any of that stuff is if they are like by themselves or something like that. And so if I'm actually just trying to like make a point out of that, I feel like I already did, because it just does seem like something like, why not? If the world follows trends or something like that, and certainly if you do walk with like umbrellas or whatever, it's like you see shadows. And if they are all made by technology, it should be easy to make them that way, right? Unless we actually take personal history into account and there's more that's going on in this world than meets the eye. But like I said, my ability at least to then meet with that is the ability to say that there's like always wire. Because for some reason that's a concern for people. And I don't know exactly how that started, but maybe it could be a comforting thing then as well. Like you could just say there's always wire. And if there's always wire, then just like that idea to come up with like a bad idea should almost be able to just give the idea anywhere, rather than taking the frame away from things or coming up with excuses for things. So then it's like, if I could come up with some good idea of an excuse, then my excuse would be, well, let's see. Yesterday I just went on a really far bike ride, and I'm obviously very aware of my situation. So it's almost just to the extent of like, yeah, well, this idea of running out of something else just to use something else, like, is that a good idea or a bad idea? Does it mean something more if like there's something else that you can use? And see, I could go into like safety as well, like the whole idea of really possessing that place so that I could actually lock things up entirely or something, rather than having it be some little trick at the very end. And so I thought, hey, well, today then I'm just going to go on a walk. should also take into consideration like a little bit of the recent past, I would think. And then maybe it's just like that whole idea of me being able to do that is just like being it. Like the ability to do that is just like that. But also, I guess then I would say is just like the ability. Is the ability to keep going, or is it the ability to stop? Is that the real talent? Because obviously earlier with this whole umbrella thing, before I even came up with the idea of all that, then are you actually able to like manage kids and stuff like that? If you do own an idea or like provide an excuse for yourself, then are you going to be able to handle all the kids of that? If I was to be more relative, and I was just to say like, is the talent in just keep pushing, or is it in being able to stop? Because obviously some things have to be unchanging for you to be able to take that form. And then if I was to say like the world can change, then maybe it's just like people would say, why isn't he like leading or something like that? Which is just like saying like, why aren't you in a better place? But if you see, then I'll just keep going. Like I'll just really keep going, and I'll just say like, really the ability for you to do any of this, and I can say this now, is just like no more than like maybe the first memory a lot of people have of like catching a ball. Like as simple as that sounds, but guess what? There are people out there that in the very beginning of this history did not even want to do that. Okay? Like maybe that's all this is just like, it's just bigger and bigger and bigger balls. Can I reference like some AC/DC and Rolling Stones here with this then? Because so then really you can make the talent, like the talent isn't being able to stop then with this framework of this stuff. And then being able to say like the world doesn't have to change, because guess what? I don't want to have to deal with all those kids. Like, yeah, I can use that as like a pivot point for a second and say like, why aren't there like all these different forms of umbrellas? But it's just like, do I really want to deal with that then? Do I really want to use the idea that the world is unstable, basically, to tell everybody that it is unstable or something like that? No, I'm not trying to walk around and do that. Okay? So then basically I would just say like the excuse for myself is like, I stepped up to the plate. Like, in the beginning. And maybe if you didn't, like I can just say to you like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry, but I would just say like, to an extent, like I would just say thank you for staying. Maybe you did something else. Because obviously this umbrella has some structure of something. So then there's your excuse, because I would just say maybe you did something else. Or then maybe I could just go to Bridge and then just say everything is the same. If I was to actually then make this into some real traveler's guide. So there you have it. And that's how you talk yourself down. And maybe if I was to say that it's like talk myself's self down, which, like if I was to say something really crazy right now, like, yo, grandson, get down from there. Or something. Is that crazier than me saying that I was rhyming like with miss-sense earlier? To just say like rhyming all the senses by saying that it's like you could block anything out, then what are you seeing actually? Are you seeing me or nothing? Is it more than just to say that? So anyways, there's that, and now I can provide a feeling to it. Because it's just like, yeah, there's plenty of things that it's like I've made that just seem like, is it force or is it like force? And then you can make a talent of not doing as well then. which provides an excuse for things. So, is that all I did? Is there like some magnification involved or something? Or I would also then just say like, Granddad, why are you watching that? I was to say something funny to that. Rather than trying to tell somebody to do something, just ask them why. Just like I said something crazy about a grandson, then I'll just say Granddad or great granddad, just because I know that's possible. I'll just say like, why are you watching that, dude? And then I probably wouldn't say or do any more than that. I'd probably just leave. Like, dude, why the hell are you watching that? But I wouldn't even say that. They have no idea who I am. At least right now. Because if there really was anything that was that great out there, guess what? I'll probably just tell you all that it probably knows you all by name without you giving any indication of it. And that's not necessarily what I was trying to touch upon with any of this stuff. So, I mean, I did say red deer, but I guess you take that for whatever you want. Or I guess if I was to give you a little bit more jargon, it'd be like a red stag. Just because I know that's what you call a red deer, but yeah. Anyways, should I say that everything is the same or should I say it's different? I'll tell you a really simple way to say that. I know that biking, the more you stop, the worse it gets. Is that all the same for walking? How far do I want to go? Am I actually going to be bad or just for show? Or is the worst actually for show if you really know anything? So I would just say, yeah, like if there is that great thing out there, then it's probably personal to you guys. Whatever the hell that is. So, made this personal to myself, and I'll just make it personal to you. And the most relevant way that I can do that is say, whatever that is, then it's probably personal to all of you at this age, all of you cowboys, all of you cowgirls, all of you stock hands, all of you barrel runners and bull riders. It's probably whatever that is. It's probably really personal to you, and I'm not going to try and breach my intrusion anymore in any way. Of at least on camera, maybe off camera, I'll try and think of it some way, and I'll just say that on camera.